Get the fuck off my bus, recruits, and scream I serve. That was the first thing I heard when I arrived to Parris Island at 17 years old. Not welcome, not here's what to expect, not we are glad you chose to serve your country. Get the fuck off my bus. And from that moment, everything that made me Santiago disappeared. 72 hours of in-processing when you first arrive. No sleep, no familiarity, just chaos and commands, and the slow erasure of everything you were before you got on that bus. Everyone gets the same haircut, bald. Everyone gets the same uniform. Everyone gets the same gear. And then they put you in a line. A conveyor belt of human beings moving through medical, getting injected, getting examined, one after another after another. Nobody has a name. Nobody has a story. Nobody has a history. You are a body in a line. They took everything that made me an individual and replaced it with something else entirely. And here's what I really want you to understand. They were good at it. Do you know what word I was not allowed to use during boot camp? I is that word that you're not allowed to use in boot camp. Not I have a question, not I have or I need to use the bathroom, not I don't understand. If you wanted anything, if you needed anything, you had to refer to yourself in third person. This recruit requests permission to go to the head. This recruit has a question, sir. This recruit. Not I, not me, not my name, not Santiago. This recruit. Because the I, the individual, was the first thing they needed to remove. And if you broke the rules, and there were so many rules, they'd IT you. Incentive training, creative punishment designed not just to exhaust your body, but to break your will to see what was underneath. To find out if you were going to react in chaos or stay calm under pressure. You had to memorize the history of every Marine who came before you. While marching to the chow hall, the drill instructor would shout, 2 Marines, 2 medals! And you better know without hesitation that the answer was Dan Daly and Smedley Butler, sir. They drilled us until we stopped thinking and started reacting, until a command didn't require thought. It required action, immediate, automatic, precise. I remember when I first started drill, I couldn't count, I couldn't keep the pivots in the structure right. And then in the end, we moved as one body, seamlessly without hesitation. This is not an accident. This is architecture, the deliberate, systematic dismantling of one identity and the construction of another. Every waking second of every day, running, shouting, chaos, pressure, tradition, discipline, all of this designed to answer one question. Are you mentally capable of being a Marine? And then months later, the crucible, the culminating event, 72 hours of sleep deprivation, food deprivation, miles of hiking through the night, carrying everything you have left. And when you come back from that, they give you the Eagle-Globe anchor. And in that moment, you are no longer who you were. You are a Marine. And let me tell you what that means. It means you signed a will before you deployed. It means you were prepared to die. It means you became a part of a machine, a lethal, precise, disciplined machine, whose entire purpose is to protect the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. They did not change how you walked or talked or followed orders. They changed how you processed threat, how you responded to chaos, how you related to danger. They made you ready to go to war. And I'm not here to tell you that was wrong. I'm here to tell you what happened next. Because what happened next is the injustice. After years of that, years of structure, of identity, of purpose, of brotherhood, of knowing exactly who you are and what you are for, they sat us down in a room for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And they gave us websites, phone numbers, a book about VA benefits that nobody explained, civilians who had never worn the uniform, or if they had, it was so long ago, they had forgotten what it felt like standing in front of us, reading from slides, death by PowerPoint. They told us about the GI Bill, about home loans, about how to transfer to our records, or the transfer of our records, from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., day after day, a data dump of information delivered to people who were still processing the fact that their only identity they had known for years was about to be taken from them. And then they handed us paperwork, page after page, sign here, initial here. You're signing away liability. You're signing away documents that will affect your disability rating, your benefits, your health care for the rest of your life. And nobody read the fine print because there was so much of it and nobody explained it because they didn't fully understand it themselves. And then it was over. 2 weeks. That was the bridge between years of total identity reconstruction and the rest of your life. I graduated high school on a Monday. I was on a bus to Parris Island on a Tuesday. I had not yet lived. I had not yet made mistakes as an adult. Had not yet built anything. Had not yet failed at anything. Had not yet figured out who Santiago was going to become. I joined at 17 years old. I left at 26. 8.5 years. And when I walked back into civilian life, I was expected to be a 26-year-old man who had his life together. But I wasn't 26. Not in the ways that mattered. And I was 17 years old in a 26-year-old body, trying to figure out who Santiago was. Because the last time I had been Santiago, before the Marine Corps, before Parris Island, before the drill and the crucible and the uniform, I was a teenager who had just walked across a stage to get his diploma and had 2 days before everything changed. My friends had spent those 8 years building trial and error, businesses, marriages, careers. They had done the messy work of becoming adults in the civilian world. And I had done the messy work of becoming something else entirely. So when I showed up, I felt behind. I felt lost. I felt like I was supposed to already know things I never had the chance to learn. And the people around me, my family, my ex-partner, my brother, they felt it too. They saw a 26-year-old man who wouldn't open up, who couldn't lead in his relationship, who had no emotional availability, who seemed broken. And what I know now, what the neuroscience now confirms, is that I was not broken. I was neurologically disorientated. My brain had been rewired for one way of living and then dropped without preparation into a completely different world. 4 years after leaving the military, I'm still fighting the VA for benefits I am owed. 4 years still navigating a system so complex that you have to hire other people just to understand what you are entitled to. Still dealing with the consequences of paperwork I signed in a fog at the end of a 2-week class that was supposed to prepare me for the rest of my life. And here's what nobody told me when I left. The symptoms don't show up right away. They don't. My mind was still assimilating, still dealing with the turmoil, still trying to figure out how to pay rent and navigate relationships and be a person in the world. And then 2-3 years later, when everything finally settled, that is when it hit. The PTSD, the TBI, the ADHD, all of it surfacing at once like a delayed explosion. Because my brain had been holding it all back while it tried to survive the transition. You know, the VA's own 2024 National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report confirms that the first 2 years after leaving active duty are the highest risk period. Isolation, unemployment, housing, instability, confusion, navigating care. And the numbers tell us what happens when we fail these men and women. According to that same VA report, an average of 17.6 veterans die by suicide every single day. Not a year, not a month. Every single day. I believe with everything I am that those numbers are connected to what happens in that 2-week transition class. That the silence after the uniform comes off, that the moment when structure disappears and nobody is there to catch you, that the gap between who the military made you and who the civilian world expects you to be, that is not a story about weakness. This is not a complaint. This is a testimony. The United States military is one of the most sophisticated institutions in human history when it comes to building identity. They can take a 17-year-old kid off a bus on a Tuesday, 2 days after his high school graduation, and in months transform him into someone ready to go to war, ready to die, ready to be a part of the most lethal fighting force this world has ever seen. And you know what? If they can do that, if they can really do that, turn you into this machine, they can do better than 2 weeks. 2 weeks when I'm calling for today, what I'm calling for today is not charity, is not sympathy. It is accountability. The same institution that spends months deliberately dismantling who you are as a moral and civic obligation to invest. Seriously, structurally invest in helping you become who you need to be next. That means a minimum of 3 to 6 months of funded structured transition support. Not websites, not phone numbers, not a book that nobody reads. Real mentorship from veterans who have successfully made the transition. Real financial counseling. Not a slide about the GI Bill, but actual guidance on how to use it. Real mental health support that understands the neurological reality of identity loss. Not a prescription, but a pathway. Real preparation for the fact that you may be 26 years old on the outside and 17 on the inside. That is not failure. That is the direct result of what was done to you in the name of service. Dr. King once said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. The injustice I am naming today does not happen on a street corner or in a courtroom. It happens in a transition class. It happens in the stack of paperwork. It happens in the silence after the uniform comes off and nobody is there to tell you who you are now. Every year, thousands of men and women leave the military, having given their most formative years to this country, having given their identity, their youth, their sense of self. And every year, this country hands them a 2-week class and says, good luck. That is not good enough. It has never been enough. And I need you to understand, the military made me a Marine in months. The least this country can do is take 3 to 6 months to help me become a man in the civilian world. We owe our veterans more than a handshake and a data dump. We owe them a real transition, a real investment, a real chance at the life they were promised when they stepped off that bus. Because they got off that bus. The least we can do is make sure there is someone worth arriving to.